Chapter 12. Moving Forward. I took a deep breath, meeting the anxious gaze of my uncles and the king. You will stop blocking the portals. We won't sacrifice you for helping us. It's our turn to help you now. The dwarves smiled and sighed in relief. The voice responded calm and resolute. Very well. I will hold on for as long as I can without passing the point of no return. And then I heard her voice directly in my mind. Thank you, my child. There is more to you than you realize. When you are ready, I know I can count on you. And just like that, she was gone. I looked around. The others wore the same dazed, reverent expression. She had spoken to them too. Keenan approached, his expression unusually sober. Did she speak to you too? He asked quietly. I nodded. He sighed, a tear welling in his eye. She knew exactly what I needed to hear. What did she say? I asked. He hesitated, then shook his head. I think I'll keep that to myself. I placed a hand on his shoulder. I understand. He added, voice softer now. She did thank me for trying to save the dragon, but she's been healing her while she was frozen. I smiled. So that's why it didn't work. The dwarves were ecstatic, their joy unmistakable. Even Grog, usually gruff and stoic, was smiling, a rare sight I'd hardly seen before. Tormund beamed and turned to Keenan. There is much to prepare, he said, but she wanted me to give you a gift. He gestured to a shield. I'll need Merrick for a bit, though. Keenan looked to Merrick, who agreed and allowed himself to be handed over. As we stepped out of the chamber, the soldiers stationed outside bombarded us with questions. The king raised a hand and gave a brief explanation of what had transpired. The scribe scribbled furiously, then suggested an announcement at an assembly. The king agreed. Finally, Tormund said, We have much to do, but we all need rest. It's late, and Merrick won't be ready until tomorrow. The dwarves escorted us to a series of small, cozy rooms carved into the stone. Heavy blankets and plush furniture softened the rock. Exhausted from the day's events, we each fell asleep almost instantly, our minds swirling with everything that had just unfolded. We woke up early and were immediately summoned to the king. The throne room was alive with motion. Dwarves running in every direction, maps spread across tables, voices raised in planning and purpose. Tormund motioned us over and smiled. Not sure how you slept, but I haven't felt this energized since I was a small boy. We all smiled. His excitement was contagious. Even knowing what was coming, morale was high. At his signal, someone brought Merrick forward. He had been transformed. His frame was now covered in a sleek layer of black obsidian and gleamed with a brilliant glossy finish. Merrick chuckled aloud. They really did a number on me. I can channel energy much easier now, and they even infused some small energy storage orbs into my framework. He laughed mischievously. I haven't felt this good in several hundred years. If we get into a good fight, I might even surprise you with something new. The king smiled warmly. Good to hear your voice, Merrick. I'm glad you approve. Our blacksmiths and mages worked through the night to upgrade you. He handed the shield to Keenan. The Celestial Mother named you as one of her champions. You'll need something that lets the world know, and they will now, he said, pride in his voice as he glanced at the shield. But there is much to do. I recommend you travel to Burke and Grissom to inform them of what's coming. They have much to prepare. In the meantime, our mages are working on something critical. We'll have more information in a few days. We may need your help again soon. Keenan thanked the king. After exchanging farewells, we gathered our gear and left the mountain, beginning our journey back to Grissom City. Grog had mostly returned to his usual grumpy self, though his mood had noticeably improved after visiting home. Whatever he had heard seemed to have helped. Throm was whistling cheerfully, and Gam kept marveling at the beauty of the dwarven city beneath the mountain. Even after all those years, the splendor of the mountain remains, Gam said, smiling. Good, good, he added, rubbing his hands together. We set a brisk pace and arrived in Grissom City just before lunch. Gam immediately headed to the council to discuss preparations for the impending attacks. Throm announced he'd return to the blacksmiths to reinforce the city's gates and repair a forge, as many weapons and pieces of armor as possible. Grog, ever practical, said he'd begin stockpiling food reserves in case of shortages. Snorting, he added, I've got some dwarven spices that preserve food and will knock your boots off. I shook my head. Well, if it's dwarven, it probably makes it taste terrible. And now it's also going to take my boots? Grog grinned. You never complained about my cooking before, and your smart comments won't get to me today. Too bad, I said, smirking. Always fun seeing you get riled up. Grog shook his head and headed towards the inn. Rieger spoke up next. Since I'm closest to Jeffries, I'll speak with him about what's coming, see how we can help. As the group dispersed, Keenan and I stood watching children dart through the streets, their mothers laughing as they called after them to slow down. Keenan sighed. Hidden casualties of war. Children. Yeah, I agreed. Too bad we can't make them safe. An idea sparked between us. Our eyes widened as we turned to each other. What if, Keenan began, we hide them in the tunnels, I finished. Yes, Keenan explained. Philip could oversee it. He'd be perfect. He can help stock everything while we're away. He chuckled. He does love feeling important, and this would be pretty important. It didn't take long to track Philip down. We found him in the harbor district haggling over some old fish. Philip, I called casually, trying to sound nonchalant. He paid for the fish, shook his head in irritation at the price, and walked over. With an exaggerated air of importance, he hopped onto a barrel and asked, What's up? Keenan and I struggled to keep straight faces. Hey, I said, we've got a special top-secret mission for you. Philip's eyes lit up, though he tried to play it cool. Yeah, I figured you'd need my help eventually, he said, glancing around like he was already plotting his strategy. We smiled. We need you to take charge of an underground fortress and prepare it to house refugees. Stock it with as much food, water, and clothing as you can. Philip's eyes nearly popped out of his head. Are you serious? He asked, suspicious. What's the catch? No catch, we assured him. You'd even have a friend reporting to you. You'd be in charge. Philip frowned, still skeptical. Sounds too good to be true. Tell you what, I said. Why don't you come with us to check it out? You can decide for yourself. He shrugged. I guess that can't hurt. We took Philip to the house with the mirror and stepped inside. To our shock, the mirror was gone. Keenan and I immediately panicked. Where is it? I shouted, running around the room. This is not good, Keenan muttered, face pale. Philip stood there confused. What's wrong? There was a mirror here, a very important mirror, and now it's gone, I sputtered, still searching frantically. Philip tilted his head. Oh, Gam had me move it. We both froze. He what? Keenan demanded. Yeah, Philip said, surprised at our reactions. He said it was valuable or something. He had me put it in a small warehouse for safekeeping. A couple of my boys keep watch over the place for him. He pays them a bit of coin. They tell him what's going on. I groaned. Wish he had told us that. Right? Keenan said, shaking his head with a smile. Without wasting another second, we followed Philip to the warehouse. When we arrived, he spoke briefly with the young boy watching the entrance, then led us inside. In the far corner, covered by a sheet, stood the mirror. There it is, Philip said, pointing. Relieved, I smiled and pulled the sheet off. Turning to Keenan with a grin, I gestured toward it. After you. Keenan smiled back and stepped through the mirror. Philip's eyes went wide. Hey, what's going on here? He ran behind the mirror and back in the front, looking utterly baffled. Okay, he said, grinning. How'd you do that? I chuckled. Why don't you walk through and find out? He hesitated, then curiosity got the better of him. Ah, what the heck, he said with a smile and stepped through the mirror. I let the sheet fall back over it and followed. On the other side, we made our way through the tunnel. As we walked, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed towards us. I turned to Philip. Okay, don't freak out. Why? He asked nervously. Just then, Frank rounded the corner, his large frame nearly filling the tunnel. Philip stumbled back, nearly losing his balance as he tried to hide behind us. Look out! A troll! He yelled. Frank spun around, his voice booming, shaking the walls. Where? Keenan started coughing, trying to stifle his laughter, while I couldn't help but chuckle. Sorry, Frank, I said, still smiling. We brought another friend to help us out down here. Frank turned back, looking around. So, no troll? He asked, confused. No, I said, motioning to Philip, who was peeking out from behind me. Philip whispered, You're friends with this guy? Yep, I replied. Frank, I'd like you to meet Philip. Philip hesitated, then stepped out, trying to act calm, though his hands were visibly shaking. Time for a confidence boost, I thought. I turned to Frank, who was eyeing Philip curiously. Frank, this guy here is basically the king of the underworld in Grissom. Frank's eyes went wide. He is a king? Well, what I mean, I began, but Philip cut me off, puffing out his chest. Yeah, that's right, so you must listen to me. Frank's face lit up. Wow, friends with a king. Philip grinned. Yep, now listen up. We need to get this place ready to save people. We'll need beds, food, and supplies. Frank nodded eagerly. If bad guys come, I can bonk them with my club. Perfect, Philip said, crossing his arms. But you have to check with me first. We can't go around bonking the wrong people. Keenan and I exchanged amused glances. Well, Keenan said, chuckling, this is going well. Yeah, I agreed. 2 peas in a pod. I turned back to Philip. Okay, we need to show you how to get back and where this place is located. After that, you can start coming here and getting everything ready. Frank can show you around. Philip nodded. Don't worry, I got this. As we walked away, Frank called out, Bye, King friend Philip. Philip turned and waved. See you later, Frank. And hey, just call me Philip. Not everyone can know that I'm a king. It's hush hush. Frank nodded seriously. I can keep secret. Don't worry. Just ask the boss about the password. Keenan shook his head, chuckling, as we disappeared around the corner. As we walked back, Philip grinned and mumbled to himself, This is going to be awesome. We made it back to the city, and after saying goodbye to Philip, who hurried off to start getting things ready, we grabbed a quick dinner from Grog at the inn. We asked if there was any news, but he simply shook his head, too busy preparing for the evening rush and everything else that was coming. After a quick meal, we headed to the barracks to look for Rieger. When we arrived, we found him being bandaged by Jeffries, who was talking excitedly. As Jeffries finished wrapping Rieger's shoulder, I blurted out, What happened? Keenan stepped forward, placing a hand on Rieger's shoulder and closing his eyes. Rieger sighed. Apparently some priest from another island was poking around in the sewers. Claimed he accidentally summoned a sea hag or something ridiculous. Turns out it was a trap. He summoned the thing on purpose to steal our gear and who knows what else. So what happened to your shoulder? I asked, frustrated we hadn't been there to help. Jeffries chuckled. Well, the priest tried casting spells, but he kept botching them as we chased him through the sewer. When I finally got close enough to arrest him, he pulled a knife on me. But the floor was slick, and he slipped and dropped into a huge pile of... Jeffries trailed off, glancing at Rieger. Rieger grinned. Poop. It was everywhere. Yeah, that, Jeffries says, trying not to gag. He started digging through it, looking for the knife. The smell was so bad I had to back off. He couldn't find it, so he panicked and threw poop at me. Wait, I said, shaking my head, trying not to laugh. He lost his knife and poop, and decided the next best thing was to throw it, poop at you? Jeffries shrugged. I guess. If he hit me, it might have helped him. But as he went to throw it, he slipped and fell right into the sewer water. He drowned before I could pull him out, he added, voice grim. Too slippery. Keenan shook his head, finishing up Rieger's shoulder. That's disgusting. What a way to go. I shook my head, trying not to imagine it. What about the sea hag? Jeffries continued. We weren't even sure at that point if the sea hag was real, thought maybe he'd made her up to lure us down there. But no, she was real. Came out of nowhere and blasted Rieger in the shoulder with a fireball. Then she and Rieger just vanished. I chuckled. Yeah, he does that. Jeffries paused, shaking his head. So there I was, standing alone, surrounded by filth, listening to her sing about how she was going to eat us. The sound was bouncing all over the place. It was hard to tell where it was coming from. Keenan and I exchanged a glance, both imagining how eerie and disgusting that must have been. Jeffries went on. I kept turning, trying to find her. Suddenly I heard a twang, and an arrow flew out of the shadows, missed my head by inches, and hit something behind me. Turns out Rieger got her, nailed her right as she reappeared next to me and saved my life. He shook his head again. Those sewers need to be cleaned out and investigated, but man, I do not want to go back down there. It was everything I could do not to throw up. Maybe we can help check it out, Keenan said with a smile, after all the demon stuff is taken care of. Jeffries sighed. I'd appreciate that. Besides, he added with a grin, you guys are making a habit of saving my life. I think I owe you now, not the other way around. Don't worry, Rieger said with a smile. Just glad you're here. Me too, brother. Me too, Jeffries replied warmly. I laughed, while Keenan smiled and looked to Rieger. You'll be good by tomorrow, he said reassuringly. Rieger nodded. Thanks. I turned to Keenan, curious. How does that healing thing you do actually work? Keenan chuckled. I'm not entirely sure, to be honest. But basically, it stitches blood vessels back together to stop the bleeding, then supercharges your body's natural repair cells. Huh, interesting, I said. Rieger spoke up. By the way, while you two were off smelling the flowers, the council declared an official emergency. They're hiring as many guards as they can and encouraging folks to arm themselves and fortify their homes and the outer walls. That's all well and good, Keenan said, but it won't matter if we can't stop the portaling. They could just pop right into the city. I nodded, thinking for a moment. Hey, what about Reggie? Couldn't he help? At that moment, a faint pop sounded and a small portal appeared at head height. Reggie's face suddenly emerged, looking at me expectantly. We all froze. You called? He asked. I stammered, startled by his sudden appearance. You said my name, didn't you? Reggie prompted. Rieger chuckled. He wants to ask you about blocking portals. The magic holding them back is weakening. More are coming. Reggie mused. Good thing I attuned to you telepathically. You did what? I asked, alarmed. Reggie ignored me and turned to Rieger. I've been working on the portal issue since they started showing up. I'll focus on it fully now. Thanks, Rieger said with a smile. Reggie's face disappeared into the portal, but popped back out a moment later. Just say my name, and if I'm not too busy, I'll stop by. He vanished again, only for the portal to reopen. Actually, he said, poking his head out, try to only call me if it's important. He disappeared once more. I shrugged, about to say something, when pop, the portal reopened again. Actually, Reggie said with a smirk, you better be dying if you call me. Then he vanished for the final time, and the portal snapped shut. We all stared at the now empty space, then burst into laughter. We left Jeffries and agreed to meet early the next day to head to Burke and warn them of what was coming. After a restless night filled with worry, we woke up early, gathered at the inn for a quick breakfast, and set off. By early afternoon, we reached the city and were quickly allowed through the gates. As we made our way through the bustling streets, Keenan muttered, we really need to ask the gnome about portaling and save us all this time walking. Rieger and I chuckled at the thought. Soon we arrived at the palace and were ushered before the king. He listened closely as we explained the situation, the weakening magic, the looming threat. We need to prepare, I concluded. Brom sighed heavily and turned to his two sons, who stood beside him. If what you say is true, I have no reason to doubt it, we're in serious trouble. We have too much land to protect and far too few troops. His eldest son nodded grimly. Even if we set up killing fields or defensive lanes, it'll be tough. We just don't have the numbers. We'll need to pull all the halflings into the city and let their homes and farms burn. Brom shook his head. We can defend the city, but we don't have the strength to meet them outside the walls. How much food do you have stored? I asked. Brom offered a faint smile. Enough to keep us alive for a while. But tell me, can those creatures, those demons, portal anywhere? We exchanged uneasy glances. We hope Reggie can find a way to block that soon, Rieger said. Brom nodded grimly. If they can portal inside our walls at will, we won't stand a chance. And that's not our only problem. The Order of Light has been launching probing attacks. If we commit to this defense, we won't be able to fight on two fronts, especially not inside the city. Maybe we can talk to them, Keenan suggested. Brom scoffed. Good luck. They're a bunch of thick-headed zealots who won't listen to reason. Perseus added, we've already tried. Every time it's either been a trap, a no-show, or a flat refusal to talk. Keenan spoke up. What if we try? Brom raised an eyebrow. A Noctarian they missed? They hate the sight of you. But you are a paladin. They've been looking for one to join them for a while. That might be enough to get them to listen. If you have someone we can talk to, we're willing to try, I said. It'll be dangerous, Rannoch warned. They're not exactly known for conversation. Perseus smirked. I'm surprised you don't get along better with them, little brother. Watch it, big brother, Rannoch growled, making Perseus laugh. Brom cut in. Keeping the maid alive gives a contact name and a meeting location. We were planning a raid there tonight, but if you'd rather try reasoning with them, I'm all for it. That would let us focus on more pressing matters. I glanced at Rieger and Keenan. Both nodded. Let's do it, I said with a smile. Excellent, Brom said. We'll give you the contact info in the meeting spot. They briefed us on the details and the emergency signal that would summon troops if things went sideways. Once ready, we headed for the meeting place, a small grove of trees near the city's outer wall. As dust settled, we exchanged determined glances. Let's do this, I said as we stepped from the trees into the grove.